didn't know that my hands could sweat as much as they're sweating the last couple of minutes on the stage. The last time I think my hands were sweating this much is when I was getting married about 9 years ago in San Antonio, Texas. Welcome, Sarah Kay, parents, faculty, and most importantly, the class of 2014. Thank you, seniors, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you here on this special day. Last June, at this time, I was unexpectedly asked to speak as an honorary alumni at the 5th grade graduation of my old elementary school, PS 40. I was pretty nervous. It was my first time speaking in front of a big crowd. There were about 500 students and parents packed into the auditorium. One of the things I told them at PS 40 was that I wasn't the greatest student when I was there. I'd like to say that changed in middle school or at Bronx Science, but it didn't. When I finished, all the students and their parents crowded around me and shook my hand. So even if you think I stink today, I hope you guys will still give me a similar ovation. In all seriousness, as I look out at this sea of blue caps and gowns and these eager young faces, I can't help but think of myself 18 years ago. I was sitting in a green cap and gown for my graduation from Bronx Science. I know from student evaluations that many of you think of me as this intense, passionate teacher who wants every kid to get a 5 on the AP US exam. But I want to tell you, I wasn't always like this. If someone had told my 18-year-old self, "You're going to be a teacher at Stuyvesant," I would have laughed and said, "You're crazy." In fact, when I attended science, I was immature, not very motivated, and even refused to take AP US history. It's true, I admit it, confessing on stage. The reason? I thought it'd be too demanding. I, like some of you, was not interested in math or science or technical drafting, and I struggled to not drown in those classes. I still have nightmares about technical drafting. I remember back then, my sophomore year at Bronx Science, holding that pencil, I kept breaking the lead. And after about 2 days of working on the plates, most of my peers next to me, they had the 3 views, they had the isometrics, they had a perfect plate. I, after 2 days, had a complete title box. But I persevered, like many of you humanities types in the crowd. It doesn't matter whether you're into history, robotics, or physics. I had a very similar high school experience, and hopefully these lessons will apply to all of you. My parents, my father's in the crowd up there, Arnold, never thought I would ever go to the University of Texas at Austin. I had never been to Texas. My only association with the state was the Alamo, LBJ, and the Houston Astros. In fact, my father was so convinced that his son, a nice Jewish boy from the Lower East Side, would not go to a former Confederate state for college. And he actually, this is a true story, refused to pay for my plane ticket to visit UT. Adding to their panic, I had recently got an earring to go with my dreadlocks. I think that's part of why my wife is up there with my son, Bernie, otherwise known as Boss, and Sippy, climbing on her right now for the last 2 hours. First fell in love with me. She was intrigued by these dreadlocks I used to have. Don't have them anymore. I remember taking my boombox and CDs on the plane and getting out of the airport in the sweltering Texas heat in August. My first impression of the dorm I was assigned was terrifying for a New York City kid. As I came through the door, I saw gigantic athletic students laying on their backs with their legs locked in a sit-up position, throwing medicine balls back and forth as country music blared from an open dorm room. I had started to feel like I had made a terrible mistake. I remember sitting on campus and arguing about states' rats with my classmates as statues of General Robert E. Lee, Confederate President Jefferson Davis stared down at me. I remember attending the UT football games. In Texas, football is religion. The stadium seats over 100,000 fans, many of them painted orange and shirtless, including an authentic 1,800-pound longhorn steer named Bevo, whom the rival college, Texas A&M, would often attempt to steal. And they actually did steal it one time. I don't know you steal an 1,800-pound longhorn, but they did. Throngs of blonde people yelling in unison, "Texas, fight!" as they did the Longhorn salute. I was lucky. I began to love UT. I fully immersed myself in the school culture. I loved the barbecue, the Mexican food, the live music, the natural beauty of Austin. I made friends from Houston, Dallas, and small towns that had names I thought only existed in Europe, like Dublin, Odessa, and Paris. One of my best buddies, Jason, from Louisiana, he was also a great guy. In retrospect, this was a really important experience to meet students who grew up in a military tradition. Some were Republicans. My girlfriend was a Mexican-American daughter of a sheet metal mechanic who went to Catholic school in San Antonio. Her father's name was Ascension, which literally translates to the Ascension of Christ. My father, Arnold, who's up there, went to a yeshiva. We were different. She later became my wife, which is the best decision I ever made. One of my friends, Vineet, was a mechanical engineer from India. I later stayed with his family in Bombay, backpacked with him through India, and served as his unvar, or best man at his wedding. So here is my first piece of advice. Don't take the safe approach and immediately do what everyone else is doing. Don't find clones of yourself. Branch out. Exposing yourself to a variety of perspectives will make you a richer person. It was at UT that I also fell in love with history. I signed up for a class on the American Revolution with Dr. George Forey. I was in awe of him. His talks were so dramatic that he made us feel that when we left that freezing cold auditorium, Benjamin Franklin would be outside the room, arguing with John Adams under a tree. Unfortunately, on my first exam in this class, I bombed it, earning a D. I immediately freaked out, thinking that I wasn't ready for an upper division class, and I went to him asking to drop the class or change it to pass-fail. But in his wisdom, he counseled me to stay in the class and urged me to rewrite the essay and keep trying. I ended up getting a B in the class, and his class largely influences the way I teach today. My second piece of wisdom is don't give up on a passion because of a bad grade. Don't let your fear of failure or anxiety about your GPA stop you from exploring a topic that fascinates you. College is an exciting time because you have this clean slate. You can reinvent yourself. Take advantage of every opportunity to do that. While at UT, I spent several weeks in a study abroad program in Normandy, France that focused on World War II. It was the greatest educational experience of my life, and another major inspiration for me becoming a history teacher. So here comes advice item number 3. You are embarking on a unique phase of your life, where you'll have these huge chunks of time to travel. Since then, I have been to over 30 countries, so broaden your horizons. Learn all you can, develop more interests. Even if you're in a 7-year bio program, be open to the idea anything is possible. Study abroad. Go spend a semester in Delhi, Krakow, Shanghai, or even Rio de Janeiro. Before I was a history major, I was an art history major. I was dead set on working in a museum, as a curator, or as an art history professor. My first class was Ancient Through Medieval Art, taught by Dr. Alexander. She was very British, like something out of a Harry Potter film. I remember one time we were looking at slides of Greek or Roman art, and I raised my hand eagerly, like you often do. And after I finished what I thought were insightful comments, she responded in her British accent, "Rob, you would make an excellent art historian because you tend to see things in the art that are not there." But the next semester, I had MacDonald Smith, who would become my mentor. He was a surrogate Texas grandpa who made me fall in love with Italian Baroque art. I remember him in class. He had a real Texas accent, which didn't quite go with art history, but I loved him. This is what he would sound like. See here, you got your Caravaggio painting with the critters in the corner, those angels, and your chiaroscuro. Fortunately, he took a shine to me and helped me gain acceptance to prestigious internships at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in the MoMA. Even after he retired, he spent his last years in his 80s taking groups on tours of Italian Renaissance art in Florence. Mac was never rich, but he was excited every day to come to work, and that had a big impact on my decision to become a teacher. Ironically, after these internships, I realized I did not want to be a museum curator. My favorite part of the internships was giving tours to day campers and working with kids. This inspired me to pursue a career in education. So here's number 4. Don't pin yourself to your original career path. Be flexible. Your future plans are often shifting. Try to find internships, paid or unpaid, in the careers you think you might want to explore. See what it's really like. Talk to people in the field. Be open to any possibility. After my museum experiences, I switched gears and I worked as an AmeriCorps Vista in the Bronx teaching literacy. It was challenging, but I loved working with the students, and I felt like I was doing something important. This side of New York was not new to me. My father was a social worker for over 20 years and a homeless shelter director in the South Bronx. He always told me in his stern voice, "I don't care how much money you make, what school you went to. If you can't discuss a recent history biography you've just read, then you really haven't learned anything. It's not about how much money you make. If you give a gorilla $1 million, he's still a gorilla." At the same time, my father grew up poor and wanted his son to succeed in a traditional way. He urged me to get an MBA or to go to law school. I felt the pressure, but in my heart, I still wanted to be a teacher. I ignored my father's advice to seek out a higher paying, higher status job and became an educator. It wasn't always easy. When I first started, not all my lessons were so great. I remember students nodding off. You guys know the famous Stuyvesant nod off? You kind of go like this, you catch your head again. Us teachers are always afraid when you might slam your head down and get sued. There were times when I felt I didn't motivate anyone. I started to have doubts. I thought maybe I should get involved in politics or join the Foreign Service. Eventually, though, I got the hang of it. I loved debating the big ideas with my students, such as, did FDR's New Deal lift America out of the Depression? Was Truman justified in bombing Hiroshima? Or, is it our duty as Americans to ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country? It was exhilarating to facilitate these great conversations, to hear your questions and insights. I was so happy I ignored the social pressure that said that ambitious, intelligent people don't go into teaching, and I've never looked back. I put all my effort into being the best teacher I could be. So advice item number 5, and don't worry, there's only 6 advice items. When you start a new career or something you have never tried, you may not be that great at the beginning, but give it time. Or as Babe Ruth said, every strike brings me closer to a home run. Like I said, it wasn't always easy at Stuyve. Like you, I benefited from the support of my peers. I want to thank my close friend and comrade in arms, Mr. Palazzo. I know he has inspired many of you to love philosophy and government. Some people say it's the students that make Stuyve special. I agree, but only partially. Sorry. It's the interaction between special teachers and special students. Whether it's an interest in foreign policy encouraged by Mr. Trainer, maybe you were inspired by Mr. Grossman's discussion of Faulkner or Marquez, or Dr. Moore's dramatic reading of Walt Whitman while standing on top of your desk. Stay excited, keep reading, keep studying. I'd also like to thank Ms. Surrey. Working for a supervisor like her is an experience I hope all of you have someday. I would like to thank Ms. Zhang, who has guided our school like a courageous and steady captain through a terrible sea storm. Thank you for supporting my walking tours of New York City. The kids have often told me that these trips really solidified a sense of community and camaraderie among the senior class. As I look out into this audience, I see many of the faces of those who accompanied me on these trips, and I'm reminded about what makes Stuyvesant unique. Where else in the country could you find a Bangladeshi Muslim from Astoria, an African-American kid from Flatbush, a Jewish girl from the Upper West Side, and a Burmese kid from Woodside, together exploring the history of the immigrant Lower East Side through the study of architecture, synagogues, and fading street signs, eating greasy but delicious pastrami sandwiches and salty pickles as they discuss Jewish anarchists. Where else does such a diverse class visit the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Crown Heights, eat in the traditional wooden booths during the holiday of Sukkot, and get in heated debates with the rabbi about feminism and gay marriage? Meet Holocaust survivors, visit museums to see the Chagall's dreamlike paintings of his hometown in Russia. Where else do second semester seniors give up the chance to play ultimate frisbee on a beautiful spring day to instead audit a 9th period New York City history class? We always hear about senioritis, but these students often stayed after class to argue about Robert Moses and Jane Jacobs, Giuliani's legacy and gentrification. This is what I love about Stuyve, your intellectual curiosity. Many outsiders think the only thing Stuyve students care about is grades. But as you completed your senior portraits, many of you have come to the realization that the Stuyve experience isn't about GPA or which college sweatshirt you wear. When I was writing the speech, I asked one alum from 2004 that I'm still close with, Owen Lee, for advice. He said, I would say the one thing I always tell younger people is to have focus on what's really important, creating good in the world. Hyper-competitive places like Stuyvesant, and then top schools, and then competitive careers make people focus on the wrong things. Money, winning at all costs. My salary may look small next to the alum who work on Wall Street, but my currency is the students writing about me in their senior portraits, beautiful hand-drawn cards, recent graduates taking me and my daughter out to Queens for Hunanese food, and saying at the end of the meal, "It's on us, Mr. Sandler." They were graduates, it's okay to pay. So advice item number 6, the last one. The trick in life is to find a career where you can make a decent living, but you're also excited every day to do it. And finally, that job doesn't dominate your life to the point where you can nurture your important relationships, friends and family. You may have heard the saying that those who can't do, teach. Well, let me teach you one last thing before you graduate. I suppose I could have been a lawyer, but I am so glad I'm not. I wish for you what I've gotten from you. A job I love that never goes stale and has value to the larger society we live in. As the great Mark Twain said, 20 years from now you will be disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Congratulations on your great accomplishment. I wish you luck. Thank you.